Good morning, everyone. How are you? Hope you're well. I am going to give just a short meditation after I do an introduction of what is happening. Let's see if I can get this right here. There we go. I am waking up. I'm waking up today at dawn. This is the second day of Black August. So to wake up early, I've been up since about 5, just so that I can eat. When we fast from sunup to sundown, the whole part of this Black August commemoration, it's not a celebration. It's not like the Juneteenth, which has become a part of what the U.S. celebrates. This commemoration may not be celebrated through the government as much. If you notice the things that are happening, sometimes the commemoration are for those that believe and have beliefs in this multifaceted country, the beliefs of settler colonialism that were for the natives who are fighting for land back. Some of us believe that prisons should be abolished. Some of us believe that, even my elders and people down my street as elders and those becoming elderly should have Medicaid and Social Security protected. So just to mention why it's a commemoration rather than a government celebration like Black History Month and certain dates that are on the calendar for this government within the U.S. We commemorate Black August, and so today it seemed appropriate to just come with a lens of understanding, of just transition, of reparations, of love for self-care. I've been recently putting on some wonderful, I think funny, videos, short PSAs of myself in this commemoration of Black August. And some of you may have been paying attention to the young people who are giving the more known adult version. I'm going to say adultism because we're talking a lot about how do you become a youth ally and allowing that silliness in some of my videos to come through. If everything was such I'm sitting here speaking the English language, sitting to you to show that I can sit gracefully with a smile on my face and use the proper etiquette as well as language. That doesn't always shine through for the cultural dynamics of hip hop or ebonics or even cultural multi-mixed media. So this is not always my most favorite way to speak to the community. I had to learn this way as a student at Emerson College. They made us take classes to speak the language that's appropriate for ABC, CBS, NBC. It was a requirement for freshmen. It was a requirement for us to continue on, that we not have a drawl, maybe talking like we're from the South or the Midwestern or the Western or any other in any other immigrant slang. They got rid of that. So for me, this posture of having this tone is good. I believe as a meditation mindfulness, we should be at peace and at rest with our vocabulary. But there is a place where this breeds for me a centralization in the US that isn't always good. When in fact, we believe that media should be only in this dynamic of speaking in this way. We don't open up to the many various ways. I'm not saying DEI, I am saying the many various ways of who we are on this section of the planet called the US of A, United States of America, what talks and speaks to American exceptionalism, right? So, this Black August tradition that I am personally involved in, this right now for our cooperative, isn't so much that we all agree on everything. As a cooperative, we vote, right? We come from different ideologies and dogmas, and that is what makes us unique. We do agree on the basics so that we can align and move forward. But I want to talk about Black August in the respect of the motherland. And I think that's important to me. As you watch this fan over my head, there is that movement that I always feel is important in a shot. As someone that studied at Emerson Film Production and worked at Eyes on the Prize, which is with Henry Hampton, that made the Eyes on the Prize documentary from Black Side, as well as we having my version of participation, 6 other films through that WGBH outlet. So I have the right sometimes to be a little quirky, a little bit more fun with the young people, because I don't believe that this structure of just talking to a camera, like so many people are doing, is the best way. Um, I believe there's got to be more variety. And it's not judgment, it's a pushing. And I think so many times people believe it's judgment, but if there are souls that just allow you to go with the status quo and don't speak up, then we've lost the whole reasoning for debate. We're lost the whole reasoning for sitting in a circle instead of popcorning, listening to each other. And I find myself, especially during COVID, doing this a lot, but not speaking a lot. I sit in circles and listen a lot. Um, and so going back to the motherland, there are 54 countries in Africa, and not one of those countries speak the same language. Not one of those countries, some of them, yeah, speak the same languages. Not one of them, though, speak the many pieces of the variety, the diversity, how they make their hair, what they do to their hair, as far as a haircut or style. None of them cook the many dishes. There are some dishes, if we were to talk about the rice, I can't think of the name of the rice right now. Those varieties of how Senegalese may do it versus Ghana. There's never this thing where you are to be the same. And so I love my motherland, and the fact that my blood rushes from that motherland, because what we can learn about collectivity, right? We are a cooperative, is that we don't have to be one another to work together. That is a quote, I believe, from Audre Lorde. But in America, and even amongst my family, my Black and African diasporic family, we believe we're supposed to speak this certain way, to be understood, to be realized and heard. We should be using the language and the paperwork and the ways that we've been taught in these universities. Use every portion of them to show validity. When I am trying to say during Black August as a study, that's what this is really today, is that the 54 countries did not need a colonizer outside of themselves to validate who they are. Meaning, when they come on TV, and many of them are making the realms like we are, to be in front of a camera and speak a certain way and even speak English, when the truth of the matter is the books of Timbuktu, the pride of the rhetoric of Cheikh Anta Diop, the support of Nelson Mandela from his people at 6 o'clock in the morning that would line up against those walls as a lawyer. They didn't need the validity of the colonizer. Meaning, we may have heard of the self-sovereign lands of Quilembos and African villages of Africa, and the maroon villages of Caribbean and Latin America, and the wonderful bat caves and lands in Cuba, as well as the ideology of Asusumas and Las Sociedades, which builds a new economy. And then we may have also even heard of Black Wall Street and Rosebud and many other towns, Russell City and Allensworth, where people were self-sovereign. And yes, they put in their paperwork to be an entity in this country because we do live here, even though the life was first from the native indigenous of Turtle Island. We now have a system where we have to do this paperwork. And so sometimes we can debate according to the Hebrew and the others that I know that would say, don't do their paperwork. You are not a part of this land. You can say you're sovereign and that way put in bold, the descriptions of what you want to prove that you knew of this place before it became America. You touched this ground, your family's connected to that. And so, again, back to the motherland as far as being non-assimilated, being self-worthy of your community. We are now having communities, right? But not necessarily communities where I see that they speak for themselves. And what I mean by that is the dynamic is the mayor's office or the city council may sometimes get money for a community, let's say HUD properties or undocumented lands. There's some cities like mine where you can go to a part of a city and it's unincorporated. That's the word. And there's many unincorporated lands. So this is a very important piece for Black August. And so to rewrite, or to write anew what we know of who and what we are, we have to remember the 50 some odd countries of Africa and how they still work together, but they don't put this thing together on who should speak like them or be like them. And that way, when we think of the fact there's 54 countries, then maybe, possibly, when you and I, as African diaspora, come from an ethos of what you want to do, you can say it's from another one of those countries. It's not coming from just the one, the centralized version of who we have to be. And I think that's the uniqueness of cooperation, right? To really teach this lesson, to train, right? To educate, as we're saying, and study. We really understand what is cooperation. Because we can truly read it. And like for me, I went places instead. I wanted to see the Columbos of Brazil, so I had to go. And I'm very blessed to say I went to Acapulco Village in Jamaica, which is a maroon village, and have been to Cuba, where they've also created these pieces of what the African diaspora has taught us, but the motherland. And I say this now because I woke up early to have breakfast and I've done that piece. And now I'm going to get ready to do some training. I'm going to the gym, going to read some studying. I did a very silly video, if you haven't seen it, on what you could read during this time because it's Black August. Blood in My Eye by the Dragon, and those that were in the San Quentin prison. I also put down there Malcolm X. Some people haven't read that yet, or maybe it's a reading it over, reread the book if you haven't read it in a while. We Are Our Own Liberators by Jalil Munter King. Um, there's so many things that you can study in this month of August. Um, for me, it's been wonderful because we have our Freedom Summer. What used to be called the New African Scouts Program in the South more so, and some places Freedom Summer is very connected to, what happened when they did the Freedom Riders. For those of you that know, that a lot of people from the East Coast as well as the West, I believe, and Midwest, I can be wrong, but I believe that's happened, went to the South when the South needed support in the struggles of movement. And we are called upon to be in these places right now to support movements. And so for Black August, it may be imperative that you, yes, wake up before dawn and eat and have breakfast soon as the day ends in dusk to gather and eat dinner, and to do those things even collectively, communally. I do have to admit, no one else in this cooperative is up with me eating. I used to make it very mandatory as a mom, right? And then there's this place of some of those things that should be mandatory, or pushed even more, is what we're contending with. We're the big mamas, the aunties that used to, you know, spank in the schoolroom, as most people would say. I believe some of those African vibrations are felt now. Motherland would have a different system, not corporal punishment, right? But a piece of prompting that is in love, not in harm. And so we've, in this country, been able to lucratively, because of the prisons and places where our Black bodies and children are wardens of the state and taken from their classrooms and taken from their families. And as a guardian lignum that I am, as well as a behavior interventionist and other stuff, we have a way where our children have been on the paper, been taken from our families because we're not doing what Africa does, which is to assure our children and our families have a respect for the elders and authority. And so because we're more freed up in this American way, which we love, there is a way we've gotten away on what does it look like to be stern and still love. And so anyone that's stern, like I guess I am, like my grandmother, aren't seen as loving. And I think, gosh, I'm a pushover in so many ways. But to be stern on certain ways with our younger generation is what's missing in my viewpoint. When I look at my Nigerian and South African and Senegalese families, there's a way where a parent and a community can speak to a young person and they immediately have the respect and do those things. We're here in this culture of this American exceptionalism. They wanted us to be freed up with that so that the state can say, oh, well, you're unruly. They don't listen. Let's put them away. Men are not doing what they need to do. And because the slavery by another name, therefore the man has been taken from the families and put away or not allowed to come to hearings, wraparound services, or even schools when it comes to, or not feeling competent to go into schools to have these meetings where only women are. So therefore, there is a way of the dynamic of the village is being broken. Yeah, the village is being broken. But the village can be rebuilt. And so, on that note, it's been 20 minutes. I wanted to do a half-hour piece. I wanted to just slide into the piece of reparations, the piece of knowing that what we're seeing and how our bodies, our Black loving bodies, that we should sometimes hold and touch and hold the others in your family, the youth as well as the elders. Hold them. Meditation allows us to slow that pace and touch your heart. Breathe into that pace inside and breathe out all the worry of this body that endures so much, so fast. Sometimes our young Black girls are being taken off the streets from their families. But as I saw today in helping with a friend who was a part of our cooperative, hopefully soon, in other ways, the young girls that are being sold and prostituted on the streets. So our Black bodies are so important. The DNA from that first Black woman is so important. To have now young Black girls on the streets of every block, and not every block, and all in many blocks within 50 states is a true statistic data that should be done. It hasn't been, I haven't seen it. So going to Oakland and East right there now from International, maybe from 11th to 18th Street, that area where Black women are in scantily outfits, prostituting their bodies between the ages, I would say from 10, I don't know, to 23 maybe, is what's making me think of the motherland, making me think of how money is replacing care. In a system of care, I believe in feminist economy. I believe that it was the mother, the first mother, that gave me as a woman this doing, the piece of my yoni, which was God given, right? The yoni, which is basically how the womb is able to give birth. And I think there was a sacredness of that. And here in this country, like the American exceptionalism we're talking about, against the cardinal system. And, we have women in, I know, definitely Oakland on the streets, Black women, Vallejo, almost, every major city in California, which means every major city in the US. And so having also homeless in that same regard, mostly Black bodies, and those in prisons in California, at least, we're the second largest. Texas is larger than we are. Of bodies, again, these bodies that I want you to hold. I'm hoping that you remember to caress. These bodies are also in the prison system. They're not being held. They're not being held in good regard. They're not being touched in good regard, meaning the karma of what happens when you are sexually abused or raped is a big thing in our country. And then the excessiveness, which is why we have Black Trauma Anonymous, the excessiveness sometimes of alcoholism, excessiveness of why we have narcotics, right? Which is why there's AA and NA, the excessiveness of our trauma, and which is why we as a cooperative started the Black Trauma Anonymous circles, like Alcoholic Anonymous, like Narcotics Anonymous, to change up what is the norm of excessiveness in our country. The same reasons why I find that Africa in disciplining children or adults saying that's enough, or, there's a difference in how the voice and spoken is used, and it stops a child in this country, but the respect even of other people to do that is a practice. And it's not called abusive, right? It's not abusive. It's used in regard and with the love. And so with this Black Trauma Anonymous, I'm hoping to have us as a cooperative have some sessions this Black August. We have one already the last week of August. And there's a possibility to have 2 more engagements, meaning there's 5 weeks in August. So that way, if you're interested in waking up early, eating, that's the fast from sunup to sundown, like I'm going to do today. I just finished eating, and I'll eat again once the sun goes down. And to read with us at these sessions, we will be reading from some books. Mostly this month, I think I'm going to be really looking at Jalil Muntakim's book, We Are Our Own Liberators. They really did a wonderful opening yesterday, last night with the Malcolm X grassroots movement to discuss the history, the powerful history of the Black August movement. How it came out of a resistance of not just letting it happen, that we would be incarcerated and taking our bodies as chattel, not just after slavery, what happened in slavery, but by slavery by another name, which is very lucrative in these prisons, which is also lucrative in this ICE facilities, right? Which is knowing the number of dollars that each body that we want you to love, each body has a daily rate, just like if you go to a hotel. So in some places, from what I know, a body in the prison gives like $6,000. Right, so by knowing these figures, it would be great for those of you that love to do data research to give those numbers impact of how much money on why the prison system is so lucrative, where we can't have our bodies in community and love on our bodies and be sacred in the human condition, but instead are now again chattel. Right. And since slavery has ended and we've been rallying against it, now there's a movement to take other bodies, like my Spanish brothers and sisters who are being taken from with ICE and put into facilities, or those in Palestine, right? This happens in every country, but the magnitude of it to hold under the leadership of what we see right now, it's imperative we talk about this during Black August. So I am ending with that, and I hope you join us again in the next one. And stay in love. And remember that Black August significance is study, fast, train, and fight. Love you, family. Someone's waking up here. I'm going to turn off now. Good night. Good day. May you love yourself and may you love another one.